Hello, I'm Andrew Pilewski, and welcome to Focal Point. Today, I'm interviewing President Gorman from the Village of Riverside. Thank you, President Gorman, for being on the show.
Andrew, thank you. I appreciate being here, and good to be with you and the viewers from RBTV.
We're going to talk a little bit about state funding of local government and how each two affect each other and what can sort of become of those fundings. While most people understand that property taxes fund local government, not everyone understands the importance of state funding. Can you sort of elaborate on how the two are related?
Well, in general, we're talking about state shared revenues, sales tax, motor fuel tax, the income tax. Mm-hmm. We all understand property tax. Our residents pay those bills twice a year, and we know there's a big portion of that goes to the municipality and to the school districts. Mm-hmm. But equally important for villages are the money we get from the state of Illinois. We have an operating budget in Riverside of around $9 million. We're primarily a property tax-driven community, so we get about 52% of our revenues through property taxes. Get about $1 million from the state of Illinois. Big portion of that is from the income tax. That's called a local government distributive fund. When you, your parents, your neighbors pay their income tax, historically, 10% of that revenue that you pay, 10% of your income tax, comes back to your local municipality to help us build roads, pay the police, pay the fire, pay public works department. So part of your income tax comes back and helps us. In addition, you have sales tax. When you shop local. When you buy gas, buy it local. Those sales tax revenues come back and benefit the Village of Riverside.
And local governments can also apply for grants. Can you provide any examples of grants Riverside got or received? Grants,
again, another element of funding for municipalities, very important. You have to seek out grant funding. You have to make sure your legislators know what your needs are so that when opportunities come available, they think of you. Some recent examples for the Village of Riverside, one of the more visible examples is our green parking lot that is put in just on the east end of our business district on Burlington. We received funding through the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency grant. We received a grant of a little over $500,000, represented 85% of the cost of the project. That was for the parking lot and also for 2 alleys on the east end of town to make green alleys, green pavers so that the water percolates down through the ground, through the pavement, into the ground. Doesn't run off into the sewer system that tax our sewers. So that was an example of a extremely valuable grant to us. Police and fire departments constantly pursue grant funding for equipment, homeland security initiatives. You may see maybe yourself, if you drive, you may have been stopped in one of the traffic stops you'll see in Riverside where they're checking for seatbelt usage or other violations. That's often grant funded through the Illinois Department of Transportation, but you have to seek out those grants.
And other stuff like on the solar powered traffic speed guns or
absolutely. Any type of capital improvement within the village, there may be opportunities for grant funding. The state of Illinois, through their capital program, provides grant opportunities. The last program was in 2009. We received 2 grants through that because you lobby your legislators and you tell them what your needs are. We got 2 small grants. $50,000 grant went towards roads, and our next board meeting will be approving some improvements to our water system. And we received a $100,000 grant through the state of Illinois. Again, that's very important to keep our communities going.
Do a lot of villagers rely on grants, or is this mainly a Riverside, or do most villages?
No, it's a prime source of primarily capital funding for villages. And again, as I said before, you have to make your needs known. There's a lot of competition for these dollars out there. So you got to put in an application, put your best foot forward. Always helps to have political sponsors put in a word for you, whether it's on the federal or state level. And grants are important to all communities.
Okay, and everyone has also read about the nearly $100 billion shortfall for the Illinois pension system. And Fitch Rating Agency recently placed Illinois debt on a negative credit watch. Given the relationship we just discussed between the state and local government, how will this affect local government through these capital
Well,
purchases?
it'll affect you two ways. For any projects which we undertake that requires us to go to bonding, which you will for example, roads or water projects, when you're talking million-dollar projects, you need bond funding. If the state's credit rating is hit, it's going to trickle down and impact the municipalities. It'll cost us more, which means it'll cost our residents more money. Mm-hmm. So that's one way in which that impacts that. Second is, we're all aware of the pressures that are on the state of Illinois from a fiscal standpoint at this point. Too much of the budget goes to support pension costs. Causes the state of Illinois to look other places to make up that shortfall, whether it's education funding, social service funding, or local governments. We talked initially about state shared revenues. We get back a portion of state shared revenues. The state of Illinois has made attempts to take those monies from municipalities to satisfy their own requirements. That definitely hurts us, hurts all municipalities. Those are monies we rely on to fund our operations, pay our police officers, put our firemen out there, make sure our public works department is adequately staffed.
Even more of a reason to get this resolved as quick as possible, to stop hurting us and the other villages around through all the reasons you talked about.
Well, and it's just the uncertainty of it. The longer it's not resolved, it just causes gridlock. Businesses don't want to invest. Businesses don't want to locate in the state of Illinois because they don't know what's going to happen. So the longer it goes off, the more uncertainty there is, and the more money the state has to borrow. We all know borrowing costs money, and it all eventually comes back onto the shoulders of the taxpayers.
And all right, thank you. We'll be right back after a short break. This has been Focal Point with Andrew Pilewski. Hello, I'm Andrew Pilewski, and welcome back to Focal Point. I'm here with President Gorman, village president of Riverside, who's been president for 4 years now. And one of his major accomplishments during his term was the removal of the Hofmann Dam and two other smaller dams in the Des Plaines River. What's the process behind building a political consensus and funding the project like that?
Well, the Hofmann Dam project has been on the drawing board since the 1990s. The initiative by the Corps across the United States has been dam removal to address various issues. Public safety, people die in dams. Public safety officers die in dams when they go after people trying to save them. River health, biodiversity for both fish and plant life because you have a free-flowing river. You also have recreation aspects with when dams are removed from rivers. So this has been a initiative by the Army Corps of Engineers. They came to the village in early 2010 and said, guess what? We now have funding for this project. Again, it's been on the drawing board since the 90s. The issue has always been funding. The funding was allocated by the federal government. It's a $7.5 million project. $5 million through the federal government, $2.5 million through the state of Illinois. Funding was available. Army Corps of Engineers were going to move forward with the project. It's their project, not the village's project. However, it takes place within the village of Riverside. So by the village cooperating with them, we were able to obtain various benefits for the village of Riverside from this project. The dams. 3 dams involved. 2 small dams, the Fairbank Dam in Riverside, the Armitage Dam, which is up in River Forest, about 5 miles upriver on the Des Plaines River, and then of course the Hofmann Dam, which was the 250-foot wide dam going across between Lyons and the village of Riverside. Removing of those 3 dams was what the Corps' project was, to improve the river system, ecological restoration dam removal project. When they came to us, they needed our cooperation because they needed access across our village property. By us granting them that access, we were able to get various benefits for the village of Riverside. This project was going to happen. So what can we do to help the village of Riverside?
Yeah, and what were some of those benefits?
The Hofmann Dam and the Fairbank Dam are adjacent to Swan Pond Park, one of the major parks in the village of Riverside used by residents from all of these communities. However, when the river floods, and that's a floodplain, so it will flood, when the river floods, because of the way the park was pitched, the park would stay flooded for weeks, if not longer at times. The river wall was breached in a number of portions, so the water would spill in, water would get in the dam, get in the park, and would not have any way to leave. So we worked with the Corps and got them to include in the project a regrading of Swan Pond Park, so that the park was graded so that the water, when it comes in, and it is a floodplain, will drain to a low spot. A swale was constructed with a culvert going out to the river, so that when the river rises and the park floods, what would happen, the river would drop, but the water in the park had nowhere to go. But now, because of this culvert, as the river level drops, the water from the park will now be able to release through a culvert that has a check valve on it, which will not allow any water to come back in. So we were able to accomplish that object, plus the river wall, which was constructed in the 1930s during the Works Progress Administration, was degraded all along, and water would spill through. We worked with the Illinois State Historic Preservation Agency because, again, Riverside is a National Historic Landmark community. Anything we do that impacts our landscape in the village needs approval from the federal or state authorities. We worked with them to get approval to restore the river wall. We were able to get the Corps to step up and include that in their project. So the Corps rebuilt the wall, had to pull the bricks and the stones out from the river and put them back up. They couldn't bring in any new product. It had to be everything which was original to that wall. Restored that wall, so that now when the river rises, and it's not a significant flood event, the river wall is restored to keep the water out of Swan Pond, to keep the park usable for everyone.
Yeah, they used to have soccer games down there, and
that's been gone. So now hopefully our recreation department is planning to go back in that direction. You know, we'll see. Hopefully the project will work. A lot of modeling was done by the Corps to show that it would work, and we're real excited about it because that was an opportunity where we were able to get a benefit for the village of Riverside and for all the communities around us who use that park without having to spend our taxpayers' money.
Yeah, and the Army Corps of Engineers also got their job done in improving the ecological and other
yes,
benefits.
the dam removal started in the spring, late winter of 2012. Were completed this fall. We were able to get out of them a 3-year, if you want to call it, warranty on the project. They have a 3-year commitment where they have to come out and there's certain things that they will check to make sure that it is functioning correctly. Plantings, again, Riverside National Historic Landmark Community, our landscape is very important. We worked with them and labored with them to make sure that the plantings that were going to go in were the appropriate plantings for our community. So they will be back. They've done some of the planting. They'll be back in the spring to do some more. Whatever doesn't take, they're going to stand behind over a 3-year period of time. So it's not a done deal yet, and I'm very confident. But you never know with a river. A river is a dynamic entity, changes day to day. So it was a very hard thing to wrap your arms around. It took a lot of effort by village staff and by our elected officials working with the Corps and working with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources to get this project so it accomplished their objectives, which was river restoration, but accomplished our objectives of protecting our community and giving us better access to our parkland.
And so that's a win-win-win for everybody.
Well, that's the way we try to approach it. Again, given the fact that they were removing those dams with or without our cooperation. So by cooperating with them, we were able to get these benefits for the village of Riverside, and that's where your win-win came in. So we helped the environment, which everyone is in favor of that. But again, when you're dealing with the National Historic Landmark community, everybody's concerned about every tree, every plant, how the river bends and ebbs and flows. So we had to pay attention. We had to make the Corps sensitive to that. The Corps is used to these type of projects in an open environment where they're not dealing with urban settings and trees and parks and so forth. So it was quite a project, learning experience for all of us. And at this point, it looks really good.
All right, last question. You're not running for re-election.
Correct.
And on your way out, in a way, how would you like to be remembered as president of Riverside?
Well, when I ran for office 4 years ago, the objective was to represent the residents, represent the taxpayers. That they are the ones who are most important in this mix. So I want to be remembered as someone who focused on the financial matters for the village, who handled our budget to the best interest of the taxpayers, and open government. Over these more recent years, everything has opened up. Clarity to see through because of the internet. We have all of our village records online. All of our board meetings are on tape, also posted on the internet. We welcome people to all of our meetings to talk on an unlimited basis as they need to get their point. These village board meetings belong to the residents. They're business meetings, don't get me wrong. We're there to conduct the village's business. But it's the business of the residents that count. So I want to be remembered as somebody who was responsive to the residents and responsive to the times in which we're in. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being
Andrew,
on the show, Mr.
Thank
Gorman.
you very much.
Come back next time to see more Focal Point.